Welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. We're your hosts, Ellen Feldman-Ornato
and Jenny Drescher. We're talking with dynamic women from across the manufacturing scene in Connecticut.
Have you ever had an opportunity presented to you and you took yourself out of the running for that opportunity before you even gave yourself a chance to see if you could thrive? Today, we're going to have an interview with Beatriz Gutierrez, oh my goodness, sorry, who is the president and CEO of CONNSTEP, one of the key players in Connecticut's manufacturing scene. Bea, welcome to the Shakeup.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. So that whole notion of taking yourself off the dance floor before you even give yourself a chance. Let's start with, I know you shared with us that you have a story about your early career and a lesson learned, and we'd love to start there as a way to talk about building your manufacturing career.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me. I hope the story I'm going to tell helps someone think about their possibilities career-wise and the opportunities around taking risk. So many years ago, I was in a position as a quality black belt, which is a project manager within the quality organization. I had just joined the organization, and most of the people in that organization had very deep knowledge of logistics. I did not. My expertise was more around engineering tools and statistics. So I came to the organization, and very soon after our next level, which will be the master black belt, retired, and the quality leader called me and said, "Hey, I was thinking maybe you want to take that opportunity." And at that time, I thought about it, and I felt that I didn't understand the environment, logistics. People there were definitely more seasoned than I in that skill. So I decided to pass. And I said, no, I don't think I'm ready. It's going to be an issue to get respect and so forth. So I didn't take it. What I didn't know was that the quality leader was leaving the organization. And she did. She went to a different employer. And then for the next maybe year and a half, 2 years, we went through 5 master black belts that knew very little about the organization and also very little about the team. And I actually had my peers come to me and say, "Oh my God, we knew you were in the run. Why didn't you take it? Because we cannot figure this out." Now, the story for me, it really marked my career, because what I didn't realize is that even if I did not have the specific environmental experience or technical experience, I did have other skills that I was bringing to the table. And my manager, the quality leader, was recognizing those, which was the ability to connect with people, to value what they did and bring that into process. And then I did have the technical skills to teach the statistics part that they did not have. So from there, I always tell young people, opportunity knocks on the door, and it's up to you to take a risk. And what's the worst that can happen? You go in there and let's say you're not successful. Well, there will be other jobs, but let's say you're going to be successful. So it is a great opportunity to move your career. I will say, in particularly women, we have a tendency to doubt ourselves and to really wait for those opportunities to come forward, and to be totally trained, totally prepared to be able to take a job. And that's a mistake, because job descriptions are just the beginning of a conversation. Once you take the job, you're going to make it what you are, and you're going to mold it to you. And we come to opportunities because of our past experience, which may be very valuable for the team of the companies that we're going. So to me, the learning there is 80% of the time, you don't know the job you're going to take. But if you think you're 20% qualified and someone taps you, go for it. Because then if you don't, they will never knock again.
You know, a subtle dimension of the story you're telling, which I love. I'm so glad our listeners got to hear that, because that's a really big deal. Part of what I think you maybe also didn't do well at that time when you had that moment of, I don't think I'm good enough or I'm qualified enough, or like these ways that you were sort of downplaying your own abilities, it sounds like you also didn't necessarily gauge the stakes particularly well, right? Because what I just heard you say was like, well, these people, they had the same certification. They were black belts too, but they didn't know the organization. Like they had none of that perspective at all. And you underestimated the role of that when you looked at it, right? So that's another note for our audience members to like look at, what are the stakes and where do I need to get an outside perspective to really like, maybe I need to sanity check what I think the stakes are or what I think is most important about the scene. I think that to our audience, we've been friends with Bea for a couple of years. We're huge fans of CONNSTEP. We all are in the same, awesome, mighty Connecticut pond, making manufacturers, advance in the awesome state of Connecticut. And what do you think some of the other stakes are that people in the position you're describing, where they're estimating what's the risk, and like, what have you learned since then about estimating the stakes or gauging what's important in the scene if you are hesitating to move forward with something?
Yeah, I think part of it is to take a step back and try to think about the opportunity as a complete opportunity, not a piece. And with that, what I mean is leadership comes in many forms. And when I think for women in particular, there is a challenge on trying to see someone with your particular skills in that position. So let me give you an example. When I started working, I work in a mainly a man-dominated environment in a different culture. So I don't know if you're listening. No, I'm from Colombia. That's where the accent comes from. So the culture is different and it's a male-dominated environment because engineering tends to be. So there's not a lot of reference for a female, a young female. So you don't have a place where you can say, that's what competency looks like. It's getting better, but it was still very new at that time. So to me, it was very hard to really gauge how competent I was when I didn't sound like, look like, act like the people that were in the next position. That's what mentoring is so important. And I will encourage anyone there, particularly younger women, mentors don't have to come from your particular company. They can come from other places. But look to talk to these people that have other experience, that have succeeded, and say, I am considering this opportunity. What should I do? In my case, for example, in the example I gave, I should have explored the next piece with this person. She was a female. She was the quality leader. Different background than mine. She had gone to West Point. But I could have said, okay, tell me a little more why you think I'm qualified for that.
Yes.
What do you see in my skills that you think are going to help the organization? But I never asked that. I immediately answered my own question internally, when in reality, I did not have enough experience or opportunity to really put them into a meaningful answer. I will say this for young people, but particularly for females, don't come from a place of fear. Fear is a really bad advisor. Just sit there, listen to what people are saying. If someone says, hey, I think you're qualified for this, or you will benefit from that. That's another example. Many years ago, I worked for a company that did controls. They made controls, very big company, Rockwell Automation. At that time, if you were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you had a passport and you spoke Spanish, you were going to Latin America because it was the beginning of NAFTA. I went on a meeting and my boss said, the marketing manager said, come with me. I'm going to do a training. You do the training. So I did. And then he said, do you have a passport? And I said, yes. Okay, Monday, you're going to go to Latin America to sell products. I had never sold products. I didn't even know what marketing was all about because I was an application engineer. But in that case, I trusted him. And I went and I sat in the plane with many of my classmates from Marquette University. We all spoke Spanish and each of us worked for different companies. And I did it the first time and it kind of worked. And then I did it the next time and it worked better. So that's the opposite. He knew something I didn't. Right. And I trusted. I trusted that he thought his business was important enough to trust me with it. And that's what moved me into marketing. So it's both. Is don't listen to yourself. You may not have all the information. New things are always scary, but new things create opportunities and create experiences and give you an opportunity to round your knowledge. And the worst that can happen is you learn something or you learn something you really hate to do and don't do it again. And you'll find something else.
So what I hear from you is that you started out in engineering
Correct.
and then you moved over into marketing.
Marketing of industrial products, correct.
Yeah. And then you did a stint at DECD, right? The Department of Economic and Community Development, which then
And
led
I
you to
also
CONNSTEP, right?
taught Central Connecticut State, and I also did consult.
Okay.
So that's an example of risk, correct? When I began going to college, I did not know about any of these jobs,
Mhm.
nor did my family. The only thing I knew is I didn't really know what to do with my life. I was 18, I was a good student, but that was it. So I kept coming out with these ideas of I want to be a historian, I want to be an anthropologist, I want to be an archaeologist. And one day my mother, a single mom, with very practical mind, said to me, "You're good at math, you're good at physics. There's a career called engineering. This is the school you're going, there's 4, pick one." That was all the career advice I got. And I did. I went there and I kept studying and I graduated. And then I went into power engineering because they paid. Simple as that. They gave me a job, they pay in dollars, it paid the bills. But because I had that experience, later on in my life, someone was looking for someone with marketing experience and power engineering. And that's how I got to Connecticut. So never discard any experiences that you have. It's a journey, not a destination. Careers are built in steps, and sometimes you don't know where you're going to be going. But trust that not only is what you like, but maybe sometimes what you don't like that builds you as a professional.
Yeah,
What
I
do
like
you
to think of
think-
it as weaving threads in a fabric of your career.
Very much so.
Like you have different threads that go back and forth, and eventually you have the full cloth where you see that there's so much that comes together to prepare you for where you are now.
Yeah. And you making me think about like in all of those places where you're like going to dive the needle into the next gap in the thread. Like, what do you think? You said fear is a bad advisor, which is that really resonates with me because I think fear is a terrible advisor. What do you think that when women are facing career risks, particularly in this sector that we serve, which is this manufacturing and technology? I would include technology in that since we have a lot of that here in Connecticut. What do you think that people are actually afraid of? Like, what do you think they're risking?
I think
What do they think they're risking?
Yes, I think first of all, credibility. We tend to believe someone else's stories. So as women, we've been told we're not good at math. We're not good at science. And this is just stories, urban tales that we hear since we're little. Or women are not happier in tough environments. And being in environments that are hot or dirty or anything is a male environment, a male dominated. Women are supposed to be nurturers and look for jobs where they're nurturing people, nurses, teachers, etc. But those are stories that people told historically and stories that we told ourselves. And we somehow buy into that because there's really no data for that. When you look at little girls are as good as boys at math. There's no difference. They can play with Legos, but somewhere we tell them these stories about what women should look like. But what we forget is, I think, that technology today is equalizing the field. I can say 60 years ago, 70 years ago, for my grandmother to work in a factory, lifting a transformer was an impossibility. She was fought for something tiny. Today, a machine does that for you. So if you think about technology, what we do bring to the table is the skills we have constructed over many years, which are these ideas of nurturing, of listening, of being able to look at our environment and then try to make things even for others. That we're really good at. And in a world of technology that tends to dehumanize operators, we're going to win. as women. We bring something that most men, I'm not saying all, most men are not rewarded for, which is this idea of working in teams, of trying to communicate in non-verbal and verbal ways, to be empathetic. Those are very strong women. So when women's skills. So when you're saying, what are women afraid of? We're afraid of not being feminine. If your idea of feminine looks like very isolated, clean, not playing with dirt and all that, well, yes, these kind of fields look unfeminine to you. If women are rewarded in not taking leadership positions, not being bossy, because we're called bossy, not assertive, well, you don't want to be bossy. Who wants to be something that your society doesn't value? If being bossy and pushy is a negative for women, who wants that? And what we have to think is, how can I still lead by leveraging who I am as a woman, but still engaging the whole team? And I think that is, I'm not saying I have the recipe. Let me be very clear. I go home many times and I say, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. That was kind of nasty. But then I think, well, if a guy would have said the same, will it be as nasty?
Right.
So I'm looking at myself only from my perspective. So is listen, have different people to bounce ideas with. I think mentors are important, but you should have male mentors, female mentors, old mentors, young. There's young people that can mentor you in many ways. And they can mentor you in technology. They can mentor on how to speak to their generation. I have a great team here, in particular in the marketing department, that can they're very young and they can communicate in a social environment much better than I could ever could. So I'm learning from them every day. So I think, to answer your question, fear of not being feminine, fear of not being respected, and fear of failure. And all of those, you just have to take them one step at a time and manage them.
Follow-up question to what you're talking about is, CONNSTEP, your organization, is focused on lifting up the manufacturing sector here in Connecticut, helping them modernize, helping them adjust their ways of doing business, and all of what they do to optimize where they are, who they have, and all of that. From a climate and culture perspective, what shifts do you think Connecticut manufacturers need to be thinking about in terms of creating a more embracing or hospitable environment for women and others, everyone, to thrive more robustly?
So I think Connecticut has an advantage over other states in the sense that we're a very small community. The community of manufacturers is very small. We get to know each other quite well. And we have the luxury of having great women in this state leading these companies. So I have observed, since I've been involved in this environment, like you said, first at the ECD and now here, that a lot of these corporations, small ones, are passing to the next generation. And that next generation sometimes and many times is female. And we have these very, very powerful and strong leaders guiding these companies to the next 10, 20 years. So that is our advantage. What we need as a state to do is to connect these very amazing leaders with the next generation of women that is going to schools, that is working in colleges. Some of them are not in engineering. And a lot of these leaders that I have the pleasure to work with are not engineers. Some of them went, to study English or marketing or finance, but then their parents said, look, I need you here. And they learned that. And those stories need to be told. And that's what you're doing. And that's what I really like this podcast, because you don't need to be an engineer or a mechanical person to be in manufacturing. There's many jobs in manufacturing that require all kinds of skills, good verbal skills, communication skills, graphic designers, industrial designers. So I think if we had to really say, what do we need to do, is keep telling these stories and telling them not to ourselves, but making sure that the younger generation listens to the stories. And the important piece there is not only the females, but the males. Because it's something, we have another opportunity, which I think these younger generations don't come with the chip that says this is a woman's job and this is a man's job. Exactly. I think they are definitely more open-minded than our generations used to be. They are exposed to more diversity. So we just have to bring that information and encourage them to share them. I know that there's a podcast also that the Office of the Manufacturer sponsors with a young man, Javier Melesio. He asked me to be interviewed. He is a voice that can be heard by others his age. So I think it's keep telling the stories. They're success stories.
Yeah. I love that. I love that advice because it's and I'm gonna grab a couple of our hot takeaways for today. So we always have our shake-up factors on the manufacturing shake-up, and I'm gonna take urban tales. Don't believe the urban tales, my friends out there. Do not believe it. All of the myths that say you have to be a certain way, you have to look, sound, feel a certain way. Women are good at this, men are good at that. Like, just look, take a step back, realize all of it is a tale, and you get to make up your mind about what's the story that I want to be telling. What's the story I want to be saying about how women can be great at anything, whether it's leading the next generation or engineering and everything in between. And shake-up factor number 2 that I'm hearing is if you don't see a model for something that you want to do, go find one, right? And that in Connecticut, we have a million resources for finding the model for what you need. So if you don't see it in your immediate landscape, just start hunting. Like, literally go onto LinkedIn or the web or wherever and say, key it into Goog, right? I bet you could find models for engineering women or whatever it is you're looking for. So go find it. And then hot takeaway number 3, I gotta go with recognizing what you bring to the table, really knowing that deeply will be the most steady heartbeat of your career, because that is clearly a through line from the first time that you learned that hard lesson all the way through to today, where you are a leader in Connecticut. You're a leader for women. And so get deeply in touch, my friends, with what that magic thing is that you bring, and own that, man. Own it.
Yep.
Well, Beatriz Gutierrez from CONNSTEP, it has been a delight to have you here on the Manufacturing Shakeup. We look forward to seeing you out during Manufacturing Month, which will either be before or after this episode drops, but it's the month of October every single year, folks. So be on the lookout for all the events that are happening around Connecticut in the manufacturing ecosystem.
Be on the lookout?
Be on the lookout. There you go. All the puns
Be on the
intended.
lookout for B.
Be on the lookout for B. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, B.
No, thank you. And thank you for having me.
The Manufacturing Shakeup is sponsored by the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing, produced by Maselli Productions and Gale Communications, and hosted by the Boulder Company.